What's up, Instagram? How's everybody doing today?
Woo!
Welcome to a special election post discussion with the entire squad here, Oakland Rising Action. Everybody who participated in this previous election that we just had. So I'm going to go around, let everybody introduce themselves, talk about what your role is. I'm going to start off with Cynthia.
Sure, I have the mic. I'll get started. Cynthia, I use she, they pronouns. I'm the Integrated Voter Engagement Manager, which means I get to manage all the different programs here. And I've been at Oakland Rising for 2.5 years now.
Hey y'all, my name is Stevie. I use she, they pronouns, and I am the IVE volunteer organizer, which means that I am in charge of getting volunteers like you lovely folk to show up to our events and get more word out on the streets about Oakland Rising and the work that we do for the community.
Hey everyone, my name's Jess. I am the previous lead organizing fellow, now political organizer. I'm still learning some things about my role, but I'm looking forward to, being set in it. Mostly I'll be assessing our landscape and making sure that we are moving in the right direction, with our partners and our collaborators.
Hey you guys, no introduction here. It's the one and only Vernetta here at Oakland Rising Action. And I'm the daily team lead organizer, and I also do a lot of recruiting. So when you see me out there in the streets, sign on up, okay? And I'm usually managing a team from like 6 to 20 under my belt. And I will have you next, and we're gonna send it to this lovely lady here.
What's up, Oakland, and everyone and above and below? Pecolia, Manigo, I have the privilege to be the executive director of Oakland Rising Action. I've been here now almost 2 years come this May, and I have the privilege of helping to raise resources and to help design strategy and to help us be as structured in all the ways that we can be for all that we want to do.
Yeah. All right, and my name is Chaney Turner, them, they, she pronouns. I'm the Integrated Voter Engagement Director with Oakland Rising, working with this great team of people here to work on strategies to get community engaged and for y'all to get out there to vote. So let's get into it, y'all. So how's everybody feeling post-election? I don't think people realize the amount of work and energy that goes into planning on the back end to work on these campaigns. It was 100 days of a lot of hard work. So how is everyone feeling now that this roller coaster ride is over? Cynthia.
Yeah, I think it was a really rough November election season that I was not feeling super, I was hesitant to feel hopeful about this election, but it was really cool to work on something super local. I feel like the stakes felt a lot higher, and it felt like we could really talk to people about that direct impact, so that was cool. But yeah, overall feeling good. We got a win, so really, really happy about that. And it went by incredibly fast. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's how I'm feeling.
I just want to add on that it went by so fast we couldn't keep up to date on our we have 27 days left. We have 26 days left. That's how quickly it went.
It still says 6 days.
Yeah. But with that, I'm glad that one, it's over, but two, that we got that W. Mm-hmm. And I am feeling energized now. I think right after the election, the next 4 days, I slept 4 days straight, basically. So rejuvenated and ready for what's next with our city and our county. So I'm going to pass it to Jess.
Yeah, I definitely agree with some things that Cynthia said. It was definitely hard in November, and coming into this election cycle, there was like a lot of like uncertainty, but I definitely feel better now that election season is over and we got that W. That's what happens when you do that work. And so yeah, I'm just super excited to see how we can just continue to build on top of this big win.
And I'll agree with all my younger co-workers over there. And I would like to say that it's a tiresome run. However, we have it in us and we're built for it. We do a lot of training and we have like a lot of support amongst each other, which gives us our energy to fuel for this fight. So we're built for this, even though it's can be draining. We just energize on back up because the fight never ends. So we're prepared and we're ready to continue this fight. And just making sure we're drinking some water and got us some nice tennies, and we're gonna be hitting those streets. Okay, so we coming for you.
Says the daily team, of course. I think that, similar to Cynthia coming out of the general election, this is a time where we would normally be planning for the next election. So I think just having 2 elections back to back was just a lot. I also think it was just really amazing to see so many folks make space and time to volunteer for candidate campaigns and to really get out and talk to their neighbors, to deliver yard signs, to doing phone banks, to doing all the things that really make the work of a win possible. So I was just, it was like there's so many organizations to name that threw down, not just us, but that we were part of an ecosystem that said we needed to make sure a mayor was won, is just, humbling, right? So I always try to center us in we're part of a much bigger movement, and this movement did something that no other city had been able to do, which is to really stop a conservative agenda that just was not in our interest in Oakland.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And yes, and speaking of collaborative work, you see all of us here, but Oakland Rising Action is an extension, not just our base of voters, but our collaborative partners, and also our daily team. We had a team of 16 people who were out in East Oakland doing door knocking, canvassing, and calling people on the phone. Cynthia and Vernetta, would you mind explaining, because the 2 of you, lead our daily team, and also along with Jess had did training, to get people out there and equipped with the information. Can the 2 of you explain what is the role of the daily team and their importance to the work that we do here at Oakland Rising Action?
Okay. So basically, the daily team role is to contact voters here in Districts 7 and 6. Those are our target districts. And we reach out to them and we share political information, whatever we will be working on around that time. This past election, we was working around, we wasn't saying vote for a mayor, but we was talking about the mayor race. Just making sure that folks knew that it was a special election going on and not to be so confused, because we did just have an election in November. So that was one of our reasons of coming out in the community and talking with voters. And also we wanted to talk about the, I'm sorry, it's the small microphone. And they also talked about the ranking choice voting as well, just making sure that the voters knew about that. And then D2 was up, District 2 was up for a seat as well. So these are things that the daily team was door knocking around, and also phone banking for at least a good month and a half or so, leading up until election day, which was November 15th. Would you like to add something, Cynthia?
April 15th.
I'm sorry.
It's a whole nother election.
Back to back campaigns.
Back to back. Sorry, in April 15th.
I mean, that pretty much describes it. The only thing I would add is, our daily team really is the heart of the work of Oakland Rising Action. It is how we're able to reach thousands and thousands of voters in Oakland. And our daily team, no matter the size, we always hire canvassers that are from Oakland, that are systems impacted. Our team gets education on how to share their own stories with voters, like why this election is important for them, or like what are their own values and how this will affect them. And so it's cool to be able to both do that voter education like one-on-one, but also being able to get our team to have that voter education and talk to their own family and friends about these really important things. And so, it's definitely the heart of the work that we do here.
Yeah, and I agree with Cynthia. I'm sorry, and just to piggyback on that, some of our outreach workers, this is their first time ever doing this work, and that part is the most important part to me, because I love training folks who don't know about the work. That's really where my work coming at. Even though we love our returners, but I love the ones who haven't had a chance to do this work before, because then it does actually show where our training comes in at with them and watching them progress and having the confidence, right, to now have these conversations with their family and friends and neighbors. So this is what the work looks like, and I'll stop there.
Yeah, I loved the team of folks that we had. Truly diverse and truly representative of the makeup of Oakland. I believe our eldest person that we had on the team was 81, and our youngest person was 19. So people from Oakland, very multi-generational and diverse. And again, reflective of Oakland Rising Action and the work that we do to intentionally do engagement with people in East Oakland, in districts 5, 6, and 7. And as you see, as we continue getting more results, from the election, you can see where there is an actual line, right, of where the voting, power, or where votes, are. You had a good amount of people, that's representative in the Hills that did vote for Lauren Taylor, and East Oakland, West Oakland, all of Oakland, in the Flatlands pretty much came together to vote, for Barbara Lee. Pecolia, can you talk about, why it's important that Oakland Rising Action continues doing the work to grow power in these communities?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that we are very clear about, and why we do so many different opportunities of going out and doing voter outreach, voting is not a habit in our communities, not yet. It can become one, and I've said this in a number of different ways, but I'll be very consistent and simple. We are in a moment where every day you're just trying to survive in Oakland, right? You're just trying to get to work. If you have a job, if you don't have a job, you're looking for a job. If you're a parent, you're trying to manage your children, so on and so forth. And so thinking about who's going to be the next mayor, or who's going to be your city council rep, or who's going to be your school board director, that doesn't really bubble up to the top of the agenda in the Flatlands, right? If you're, I'm a parent all the time. I'm leaving the house thinking about what time am I getting home, and can I cook dinner for my kids, and make sure that they have all the things that they need. And I wouldn't even say I do that perfectly, right? Like many parents, like me and Vernetta say all the time, we always get better, especially when you work. So for our work, it is important to have someone come along, knock on your door, or phone bank you and say, hey, do you know there's an election coming up, right? And being able to talk to folks who are unlikely voters, right? Folks who are not gonna always get outreached at by a candidate campaign, because when you have limited dollars, because we don't have public finance system here in Oakland that's robust and being implemented, which is a whole other issue. But when you have limited dollars, you're going to more than likely spend your resources on the voters that are highly likely to vote, right? And so that often leaves the flatlands completely and utterly not with the same equal access to candidates, equal access to ballot measures, and the information that they need to make decisions. The other thing that's hella real is that we go on the doors in East Oakland and we hear, hey, I didn't even get my ballot, right? We hear, hey, my ballot went to an old registration address, or we also hear, hey, I don't even know how to vote, I have a record. And so there's also just a lot of just basic voter information and voter rights that folks need time and energy for someone that they can relate to break it down for them. And that is the bread and butter, there's another way to say it, of our work. We go and we talk every year as many times as we possibly can to voters who are unlikely to vote, so that we can give them the resources, give them the knowledge, and build their confidence to become likely voters. And so in this election cycle, we knew that in Deep East Oakland, we had to make sure that East Oakland had an opportunity to have an equal access to voting in this election. And I think we did an amazing job of talking to enough voters across multiple precincts, across multiple neighborhoods, to just say, like, yes, it is real that we're dealing with day-to-day life, and fill that ballot out and drop it in the mail. If you can't drop it in the mail, drop it in the vote center. And if you don't have one, go to the vote center. So I think it's important to see that so many folks showed up. I think it was like 4,000 folks showed up day of voting. That matters because people didn't get their ballots, right? So many folks didn't get their ballots, but if they did not have the information on where those vote centers were, if they didn't get that phone call, if they didn't get that door knock, we might not have gotten those turnout results. And even this election, most people were projecting a much lower turnout, right? I think we were projecting, 25% of registered voters would turn out, and it ended up being like almost 40. And that's big. So I think, I will always consistently remind us that people came out to vote. So thank you first and foremost to Oakland for voting. Right? That's the win. The biggest win is that, right? That win then resulted in a major win for our mayoral race, of Barbara Lee being the most progressive candidate we've had in a long time, who can come in and really bring leadership to Oakland. Is just the cherry on top of everything else, right? Because I think that Oakland deserves leadership that's grounded in values that we can go behind, and we can stand on integrity. Right, and that really mattered in this election.
Absolutely. I think, yes, voters, you should be proud. Be proud of the work that you have done. Oakland, we did something. We did something special. We did something that other cities weren't able to do, like San Francisco and San Jose. We stopped pretty much a special interest candidate from becoming mayor. And that's really huge. If you look at some of the surrounding cities that, unfortunately lost that fight, they are fighting for a lot of things, especially around, making sure people stay housed. Immigrant protections is very important. And so I think the voters knew that they needed to get out to make sure that we have someone representing Oakland that's not only going to unify all of us, but protect us from, some of the federal attacks that are on the way, which, is huge. Also sending a message that Oakland is still a strong, united, progressive city that actually wants that type of representation, for us. And the next question that I do have, yes, we, Oakland Rising Action, we endorsed, Barbara Lee. We got that win. Unfortunately, we did not get the win for our other endorsed candidate in District 2, Cara Vidal Murray, who ran a really good and strong campaign. Hope to see, more from her in the future, as we feel that, she's a strong person who can lead in any position. But the reality is that Charlene Wayne did, win that seat, for District 2. And so what does that look like, in the change? I think Pecolia discussion would be for you.
I would pass it to Jess.
All right, yeah, let's pass it to Jess, our organizer. What does that mean, for District 2? We had Nikki Bass, who was, a strong champion for affordable housing and labor. And what are your thoughts around that?
My thoughts is there's work to do around holding city council members accountable to implementing the things that we need, just as it always has been, and especially since District 2 seat is, I think, somewhere where we had some co-governance in. I think we're gonna really feel that shift in the city council, especially as people that work with the community. And so what does it look like for us to show out in these city council chambers and be like, hey, we need a Nikki Bass.
Yeah.
Like, we need somebody to be here and really hold it down for us.
That's right.
Like Nikki did.
Yes, that's right.
Absolutely.
And the reason I pass it to Jess is because I think that it's super important to acknowledge, Jess did some amazing work here at Oakland Rising Action about how to support folks who do public comment. And people ask all the time, oh, well, you all just do stuff during the election. No, actually, we do stuff during the election and we do stuff after the election, because we want to make sure that the candidates that we endorse, because it's a lot of work to endorse someone. We do a questionnaire, we do interviews, we really vet folks before we say this is who we believe is truly a progressive candidate that stands on the values of Oakland Rising Action. And so when those folks win, we don't want community to just go back to, okay, cool, we got them won, and there's no work to do. There's plenty of work to do. And just dropped a term that I want to make sure we're really all clear about: collaborative governance. We believe that this is a democracy that requires us to imagine it going further than where it is right now. This is a democracy that requires residents to say, hey, there's a problem in my community, in my neighborhood, and I'm going to go put it in the hands and put it in the ears of my elected official. It's not just at city council meetings, not just at even school board meetings, not just when the mayor does things in the community, but making sure folks are doing that regular and consistent engagement in the communities, in the district that they're saying they're going to represent. And, I think it's great to see folks out there at different events. I think it's great to see representatives, doing all this work to show you that they're out and with you. But how does that translate to actual policies that change conditions, right? And that is collaborative governance, when residents' voice translates into a problem is being defined and a solution is being worked with the community and with the elected, that results in an actual change in conditions. And so we want to make sure we're really clear that we go out into East Oakland, because we are very clear that East Oakland does not always get adequate representation when it comes to collaborative governance. We don't see the policies. I think we've been on the doors very consistently for this last, at least 3 cycles. So we did March primary, we did the general election, and we just did this special election. And we very consistently heard 3 major issues for East Oakland. Number 1, illegal dumping, right? I personally consistently use the 311 Oakland app, Oak 311, I think, to report, and it takes quite a long time for that team to make it around the whole city to pick up all the illegal dumping. There's some policy issues there that we need to see happening. We also heard very clearly that folks want more resources for mental health, right? That there's a very explicit acknowledgement that there is a correlation between what happened in the pandemic and what we're seeing post-pandemic, right?
Yes.
Someone said we got pandemic level crisis, but no pandemic level response, right? I can't remember whoever said it, but whoever said it, thank you so much. And then the third one, the one that we all know is the issue here in Oakland because of the way prior city council and the way that the prior mayor moved, housing, right? And I want to land on that because I think to your question, Chaney, around D2, we want to make sure that we're clear with all our endorsed candidates and those that we don't endorse, that coming in and saying that it's okay that folks don't have access to housing that they can afford at a time when jobs only offer a certain wage, at a time when jobs only allow you to pay up to a certain amount of rent is inhumane. It's inhumane. And that is a problem here in Oakland when we're coming in decades later after gentrification has decimated East Oakland and West Oakland and pushed folks who've had generations of folks live and breathe Oakland, and now people can't afford to live here, can't afford to raise their children here. And so we're looking to see for District 2, particularly such a large part of District 2 is Chinatown, it has the Grand Lake area, it has East Lake. These are all communities that used to be extremely affordable that are no longer affordable. And working families are constantly in those communities saying, hey, we need support, we need to identify affordable housing. So when we talk about a Nikki did work with other council members to advance affordable housing bond measure that was passed in 2022. Nikki has done amazing work around trying to identify land that can be converted into affordable housing and consistently had engaged with community around a positive set of solutions, including what do we do in crisis in the resiliency hub at Lincoln Rec Center. So I just want to lift that up because we're looking for Charlene as a new council member to come in to show that they're going to do that same level of engagement across all of D2 because we know that it's easy to pivot and prioritize certain parts of District 2 that are more affluent, that don't have those issues, maybe own their homes, have owned their homes for quite a long time. But we have to be clear that there are renters who need city council to do and act different. They need tenant protections. They need their rights respected. And they need council members who see that pain and turn that pain into solutions that are in policy.
And it's not just on one person to do that, right? Like, I think there's a lot of misconceptions around we're looking at the mayor to do that for us when there are city council members and there's other facets or like pathways to go to make change and make these policies happen. And we need to utilize that as a community and hold these people accountable for that.
That's right.
Exactly. And just to kind of piggyback off what you said, we get people, to the polls, people get there, to vote, but some might not agree, but I think that's the easy part. The hard part is staying engaged and staying with the person that you voted for, right? Whether you agree with certain policies that they might, put forward, or not. But we are seeing right now, not just here, in the city of Oakland, but nationally, a lot of performative politics. And so we need to make sure that we are paying attention to what newly and seasoned elected people, are doing off of social media. How are people voting? A lot of people say we need more housing, but again, what does that mean? Define what affordable housing means. But I want to go back a little bit because we were talking about some of the great stuff that our daily team does and how they're outside and engaging with people. But we also did some volunteering events, events to where we said Oakland Rising outside, to further engage with folks. And we had a few different events. Stevie, if you want to talk about some of the different events volunteering events that we had, over this first quarter, and why is it important for a community to get involved and volunteer with Oakland Rising Action?
Yeah, getting involved with Oakland Rising Action is so important because it shows what capacity we as individuals, as community members, can do to make a change in our communities. We just did an outreach at EOYDC to talk to some youth and talk to them about the importance of voting if they're able to vote, if they're 18, like youth that are able to vote, because a lot of them are not aware of like the significance of their voice being heard in their community, right? And we can only make these changes to try to eventually vote in people who have our best interests, who have been listening to us and listening to what the community needs. When we vote in elected officials who are open to one, listening, and two, being held accountable, and three, having integrity to vote in line with what they have previously said that they would vote in line with, which are traditional community needs. You know, it wasn't within this last quarter, but we also just did another youth outreach at Castlemont, which was to get youth registered to vote. And here in Oakland, youth 16 to 18 are actually allowed to vote in their school board representatives, which is, again, important for like using your voice in your community so that these youth are able to vote in electeds who can hear their voice of what their school needs, what their school district needs, so that they are able to succeed to the best of their abilities, right? And I think that's really a microcosm or an example of what is happening at the city of only when we use our voice to vote people in will we be able to have our needs met so that we can, you know, thrive and be as successful as we have the capacity to. You know, we can only do that when we're supported by our elected officials and leaders, right? So again, that's the big point of getting volunteers to turn out so that, you know, we all have a part to play in our community listening to us. And only when we come together and use our voices can we meet our vision of what we would ideally like Oakland to look like. We have to play our part in order for our communities to look like what we want them to.
Absolutely. And I think you said something that's really important when, you know, out in the community is listening. What I appreciate about being able to go directly out in the community is that, and I think Cynthia might have mentioned this, you know, people are grateful to get information. They want to see us out there. And the more that, you know, I learned, you know, about engagement, politics, as we know, and voting is inequitable. Pecolia mentioned that, you know, people to get their ballots. Jess, you said your entire apartment building didn't receive their ballots.
The entire apartment buildings, even surrounding me, did not either.
Right.
I'm based in West Oakland, so I don't know. Voter disenfranchisement is real.
It's definitely real.
Did you want to say?
Oh, no, just that. Also, like, talk to your neighbors and make sure that they got their ballots, right? If I didn't talk to my neighbors, I wouldn't know that they didn't get their ballots as well, and I wouldn't be able to caravan them over to the polls and then do that engagement with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was some of the things that we learned while being outside is that people, for one, don't receive regular information or they did not receive their ballots, and I know this was an issue, you know, during the November election too, which is why we do what we do in focusing on these areas, you know, and communities. We got a great win, right? The city showed out, turned up. So what's next? What's next on the horizon, right? We say we get people out, you know, we do the engagement, we get people out to vote, organize, and I say repeat. Organize, vote, repeat, right? And so I want to encourage people to stay engaged with us, stay engaged with, you know, our collaborative partners. We're still in the middle of the budget, which is very important, and we will be sharing information over the coming days and weeks, you know, around that process. And again, the results of the election still have not been certified. Although the opponent, you know, conceded its official, you know, win. we still like to look at, the finalization, of numbers of how people voted. What are your hopes for Oakland in the future, of Oakland politics? And how would you like to see people stay engaged? We'll start with Cynthia and move on.
Can I interrupt before we go on to the next question, actually? As we're talking about what we're going into next, and I just want to talk about the importance of advocating during the city budget. So if you are a resident in Oakland, you can make a public comment, and you can make a public comment at the city council meetings. Yes, you can do that in person, but more importantly, you can do it from the comfort of your own home. So that's a way to make it more accessible. You can do it virtually, or you can also submit your comment in a forum earlier. You just have to do it before the meeting starts. So you also have to make your account with that. But I just want to push people or remind people that there are accessible ways of making public comments. So again, your voice is heard when we're going through the city budget.
What was the question again?
That was Stevie. Yeah.
Yeah, what are your hopes for the future of Oakland politics? And how can people stay engaged?
My hope, so part of our script was asking people if they support like progressive ideals for the city of Oakland, and we got to really define that. And I think that in an era where like the national media and local media are really skewing the narrative, the public narrative on like what it means to like create the future that we want for our city, really being able to like get people back to those things. Like remember 5 years ago when everybody was like, yes, we need to hold like police accountable, like we need more resources for our communities, like we keep each other safe, the pandemic, all this stuff. All of a sudden there's like this big like 180 on that, right? From people who like had their little BLM signs in front of their house, and now they have supporting candidates that are like, we want to keep funding
Police.
things that aren't actually keeping your community safe. I want to see like Oakland, the progressive like heart and like people-centered view that Oakland has always had, really thrive, right, and really be able to keep growing. And so, that's my hope right now.
I feel like my answer is really personal of like, I just want resources divested from OPG to the things that we actually need, like mental health resources. I want us to be more focused on rehabilitation justice so that everyone has a fair opportunity, again, to succeed and thrive in life, rather than those opportunities being taken from them, right, through our penalization system. So I just want there to be more opportunities for Oaklanders to like climb up their personal ladder in whatever means that means.
Yeah, I feel that Stevie mentioned a really good actionable next step, which is doing public comment, being involved in the city council meetings, being involved in the county meetings. I mean, that's also important, right? Because we are in Alameda County, and I think that we, as Oakland, sometimes get isolated in, our own little island of Oakland, when it's like, actually there are people that we need to talk to get funding almost trickled down, right? Like, But I also think it's important to just like keep track of the different policies that are and measures that aren't being implemented, that need to be implemented, because I think that is where some of our funding lies even. And that's not obviously like public all the time. And so what does it look like for us to engage in the different measure fights, the different implementations for these measure fights? And so, connect with local organizations that are doing that work, and and let's just continue to mobilize people to these streets.
What would you like? What is your
Hopes
yeah?
for Oakland. So, okay, I've been in Oakland a long time, you guys, and I would definitely love to see Oakland have a bigger presence of brown communities again. And what does that look like? I remember as a kid, it looked like a lot of free concerts, a lot of families at parks, activities, a lot of things that was going on outside. Kids was running around having fun, not being locked up and feeling afraid to just have their freedom of expressions. And that is lacking here in Oakland. This is one of the main reasons of people even here today and love the culture of Oakland and don't want to leave. These things we cannot forget about because this is what the work is about. I'm here because of those reasons. It's not a good feeling going places and you don't see any of your family member here. You know, none of your sisters, none of your sister kids. It's a feeling of lostness and loneliness. And we should not have to live like that because we never did. This is something new. And yeah, I wanted to name that because that's what's important to me is family and community. And without those things, we diminish and we expire. And we cannot let that happen. Like we cannot. People are coming here from all over the world and they don't want to leave because of things that we have implicated here in this community. But then they want us to leave. It doesn't make any sense. How are you in love with the very thing that we made up?
Yes.
So, just having a reality check and just knowing where your stake is and where you belong and making sure that you stay there.
What a word, what a word. I think my biggest hope for Oakland is that more folks see that there is a strong need for those of us who have the vision to lead and the vision to step up into elected role, that we find a way to support more folks to do that. There are so many boards and so many commissions here in Oakland that need residents to put the values of like being grounded in neighborhoods into our local government. I think that it's time for like more Oaklanders, particularly in the flatlands, to consider what does it mean and what does it look like to envision who's going to be the next leaders of the flatlands, and how do we address the fact that there was a lot of division in this last election. How do we call that out, name what was not acceptable, and also create a new way of campaigning here in Oakland. Oakland Rising Action is always going to stand very firmly around campaign finance reform needing to advance here in Oakland. We knew and we did our part to expose the ways in which tech venture capitalists and real estate played a significant role in advancing negative narratives around not only candidates but about Oakland, right? And this idea of this doom loop, right? And the harm that has caused to our local economy, that we can't avoid those pieces. So I hope that we have the hard conversations as a city, that maybe it wasn't smart to say that this was a city that wasn't safe because we now don't have the revenue generated to take care of this city, because people don't come to be tourists here. People don't come to enjoy festivals here, and that's all had significant impact, right, on the functionality of our city, and in the ways in which the things that we cherish have not been able to move forward. So I really hope that we have the hard conversations, and out of those conversations, folks step up to lead. I know I have to consider, like, well, maybe I might have to join a commission or two. No, I'm not. But I'm just saying, I got enough. I got enough. And then and then my last hope is just that we have joy this summer. This is our going to be a pretty dry summer for us. And so just, knowing what that means for our community and how do we start to, actualize so many of the ways that we keep ourselves safe. And knowing that that's going to take just as big an effort as it took to get people out to vote. And so really sitting with, like, what does it mean that, those big events that we are used to aren't existing? Maybe we need to throw a block party. Maybe we need to throw some things in ways that haven't existed before, but maybe they're new traditions that we created in East Oakland from Oakland Rising Action and others. So.
Pecolia, you spoke a little bit about outsiders' voices that are being heard, or outsiders' money that's being contributed to our elections. Can you speak a little bit more about what we found with that with our AstroTurf map?
Yes, I was actually going to go into that in closing.
Chaney.
You want to?
Nope.
Okay.
You got it.
And so, in closing, just some of my hopes is, as someone who's is a lifetime resident and has been, doing local organizing for a while, it's been very sad over the last few years. The community has been splintered to the point, what Pecolia was saying, outside agitators, corporate money coming in, to try to, influence folks and putting a wedge, into our community. But one of the projects that, I'm extremely proud of that Oakland Rising did along with the Phoenix Project is our AstroTurf map, which has been educating, community, and we'll be doing some, deeper engagement, around that for people to really see where this money is coming from and how it's been influencing some of our elections over the last few years. Again, it's going to take for all of us to, stay engaged. It brought hope seeing how many people came together to get Barbara Lee in to this position. And being that we had to work hella hard to get Barbara Lee in, right? People thought it would be, something easy, but it was not due to, the machine that we were against. And so I hope that the unification continues. Conversations need to be had with community, members, even our loved ones, right? And family members. I'm like, I don't know if I want to talk to you because you voting for, against my, special interest. But I would like to see more unification. I would love to see more people getting involved. We just don't go out. You could come to us. We, Oakland Rising Action, we could come do some education at your house in your neighborhood with your neighbors. It is summertime. And to the point of events, the 5-10 day is coming up on May 10th. It's the 10th anniversary, which we celebrate Oakland's resilience, pushing back against everything that we were just talking about, including fascism and gentrification. We'll be posting about that as well. And so we are at time. We still got our lunch to eat that's waiting for us. I hope you all go and get your nourishment if you haven't already. And thank you for voting and keep the energy up. Give it up.
I wanted us to close this on the floor.
Are we good?
We're done.
Hold on.
Stevie.